When you start having somebody around that gives you the confidence to listen to yourself and to reconnect to that little whisper that you hold inside of your heart, you start reinventing yourself.
Miriam is a vulnerability expert who helps her clients bridge the gap between who they think they should be and who they really are. She is skilled at leading people of all genders to embrace the wisdom of the feminine in a world that has privileged masculine energy for too long. She has trained in human psychology, Kundalini yoga, breathwork, meditation, and Eastern and indigenous ritual. Miriam provides individual and group sessions and retreats and is the founder and creative director of La Luna. Previously, she was a fashion model who lived and worked around the world. In this episode, we talk about how Miriam moved past perfectionism and allowed herself the gift of time to open up her body from numbness, discover who she is, and find her mission. You're listening to Going Conscious, the podcast where we discover new ways to live a more conscious life of fulfillment and freedom. Each week, I speak with entrepreneurs, academics, and changemakers who have made big transformations, left unfulfilling lives behind, and found meaning in this new world where purpose drives success. Let's get inspired to live our unique journeys to the fullest. Let's explore the impact we want to make and deepen our understanding of ourselves, each other, and this beautiful world around us. Live your freedom. I'm your host, Nikki Trott. I'm excited to bring you this episode with Miriam. You'll hear us talk a bit about how we met online through a mutual friend during this corona period. The opportunity to connect with new people around the world who are on our wavelength is a beautiful positive from this time. In this episode, we talk about moving past comparison and turning jealousy into inspiration, breaking patterns, the importance of reconnecting with your body, shutting out the noise and starting to listen to your guidance, how suffering can be a catalyst for transformation, how to celebrate feminine qualities, and why we both quit reading the news. Now, let's go to our conversation. Miriam, welcome to Going Conscious.
I'm so excited to be with you today, Nikki. Such a pleasure to meet you also through this new way of connecting and technology. I think that's really the beauty of our day and age. So I'm very excited to be with you.
Absolutely, me too. And isn't it amazing during this corona time where we're all living different lives and maybe making far fewer connections or new connections in the real world, but we're able to have the time and space to make new connections across the world.
Yes, I agree. It's so true. I was thinking about that. I feel we are all globally feeling out who is kind of in our same space of vibration, I would call it. We are like checking out and there's this wantingness to combine with people that swing in the same frequency. So I feel like it doesn't matter if it's friends or somehow we all find each other. And that is right, through technology a lot now. I'm meeting so many people through Zoom and through telephone and somehow that are striving to find community that feels like home. So I agree it's a beautiful movement that is happening right now from being close through the distance. Yes.
How are you getting connected to those people? Like for us, we were introduced by a mutual, very close friend, a friend of mine who has attended one of your beautiful retreats in Tulum. So we have that strong mutual connection. How are you being connected to people? Is it normally that kind of way, or are there people that just come from nowhere?
I feel that how that connection really works is that, I have a mission somehow. Like I have this mission of living a life in truth and love, and I feel through all of my work I'm putting out, I kind of stand for my mission. So I feel that people are somehow attracted to what I do because they are doing the same thing, or they are interested in the same thing. So for example, now that I'm organizing our next big journey, our next big retreat in November in Tulum, so many different women are reaching out that are either wanting to participate or that are either wanting to share. And I feel that there's this somehow called to collaborate and work on a mission together. And I feel that is that kind of attraction pull, that, what energy I'm putting out is attracting back the same energy in people. So yeah, I feel that through my work, really, I'm connecting to a lot of beautiful people that are on the same ship as I am.
That's really amazing to hear. I know exactly what you mean. I feel the more that I refine what my clear singular mission is and what I'm standing for, and the more that I communicate that, absolutely, I'm finding the same. It's attracting back the same energy, attracting people who have the same vision and dreams.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that I feel like it's like we are all single little light bulbs. All of us have like a certain energy, a certain voltage. And if we combine our voltage, all our little light bulbs, we can really light up this earth. And I feel like that's what is happening. Your little light bulb is connecting to my little light bulb, and we are calling in other light bulbs that are on the same frequency. And slowly, we are creating this little network of light bulbs. At least that's what I like to picture our earth, with all these little people that are trying to make this place a better place, a more conscious place.
That's gorgeous. And it really does feel to me as well like a time of collaboration. I think we were brought up with this sense in our society of competition and encouraged to drive competition, and not really taught the value and true power of collaboration and coming together. And I feel like during this Corona time as well, people have really started to understand that there's more abundance than anyone could ever take for themselves. And it's not about trying to draw a fence around what's yours, but you really start to step up when you open and welcome in others.
Yes, completely. I resonate with that deeply. And one of my teachers once said something that really stuck with me. It was like, if you want to be known, make other people known. So I believe that we always get back in life what we give out. So when we want to be successful, we have to make other people successful. And I think because we can't carry the load on our own shoulders. And I feel if we are really working on a mission that is benefiting our globe, whatever it is, like doing things for nature, doing things for wildlife, doing things for education, doing things to rise other people, I feel our mission is so much bigger than ourselves that competition doesn't even play a role anymore, because I feel we are all working towards a bigger mission than ourselves, that it doesn't, the ego plays less of a role. It doesn't matter if I did it or you did it. We're just trying both to create change. And I think so slowly we can let go of claiming something if we really believe that we are doing something good. And I think that is a big transformation, because I can only just always observe myself. And I feel that I for sure felt in my own life jealousy. I for sure felt in my own life comparison of looking at the other person and being like, oh man, like, I wish I was them, or I wish I did that, or I wish I was as beautiful as her, or like all of these little voices that I think we will never quite shake. And I think when we start talking about that we are letting go of comparison, I don't feel like comparison will be dead. I just more feel that I become more aware of when I compare myself and when that is causing a negative emotion in myself. And when I get aware of that, I observe it and I allow myself to feel it. But then I also I breathe through it, and I somehow, through listening, create space for it to move through. And I feel what has helped me a lot when I tend to compare myself is really to go into the opposite of like, can I maybe put even more energy into helping that person that I'm maybe feel some envy towards? Can I maybe reach out and say, hey, you know what, you're really inspiring me. So to kind of change that language of, I envy them, is like, no, you are an inspiration for me, and may I through my capacity do things to help you. And then miraculously that will kind of stream back to ourselves, and we will rise with them. So I feel it's a complete restructuring of that rat race thinking that we are so raised with, that like, oh my God, we have very little time and you have to have your CV full of information and be quicker because somebody else is going to get your spot. And slowly we're purging all of that. I already feel my nervous system like, whoa, anxious when I start talking like that. But it's like slowly we're trying to purge that way of thinking and understanding that there's space for all of us here on this beautiful earth.
Absolutely. It's really a complete flip in perspective from feeling that the ego helps you to drive forward to then realizing and harnessing that awareness that it's really keeping you very constrained, and totally flipping that around and coming from a completely different energetic frequency and a place of opening. And I love how you describe having that awareness. And like you say, we don't just completely get rid of all comparison at all, but it's more about how we build that awareness. And I love your examples about actually reaching out to those people where you feel triggered in that way and changing the conversation and using your own power to change how you feel.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your journey, Miriam. You have come on an incredible journey from being a model in Sydney and New York, discovering yoga and breathwork, studying psychology, ending up in Tulum, where you're working currently to rise the feminine. You're a vulnerability expert, and you're really leading people of all genders to embrace the wisdom of the feminine in this world, which has been completely focused on the masculine for far too long. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that journey.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, that's for sure. So I feel the first part of my journey was really led by complete confusion. I was raised very traditionally, very academically. I really embodied, I really embodied the sense of perfectionism. Like I needed to prove myself. I needed to become something. So, in my early 20s, that sense of like, oh my God, what do I need to become? Who really am I? But, I couldn't really explore who I am because there was so much pressure on already wanting to be that perfect version of myself, that actually that not knowing who I was or what I'm really wanting to contribute to this earth led me to modeling. And it was kind of my escape through the easiest option that was given to me, because yes, it sounds strange, but for sure I think beauty is a gift that is given to us on this life. And I never, that's something I never found myself especially beautiful, but I would get that compliment back from others. And then I was scouted by a modeling agency, and I was like, whoa, hang on, I am beautiful. That sounds wow. And I can be maybe even famous, and I can travel the world and make a lot of money and be independent from my family, and just completely break every sort of rule that I grew up with of, my mom being a feminist, of you're more than your body and you shouldn't be reduced to that. Like I was just breaking everything that I grew up with. I feel like I was really rebellious also against that kind of construct of you need to go to university, and then you go from university into your job, and all of that just didn't make sense to me, because I was like, how can I ever study anything or do anything if I don't really know that is my essence, or that is my mission in life. I felt so estranged to that concept. And then in my early modeling years, like you said, I was traveling, I was living in Australia, I was living in LA, in New York, and it was such a time of excitement, but for me also such a time of losing myself more and more. And maybe if people from outside would have been like, wow, but your life is perfect. But for me, I was so lost in insecurity. First of all, how I looked, because the fashion industry, it's again this wheel of perfectionism, of needing to fulfill these sort of standards, and I was constantly trying to perfect these standards. So I lost all security and confidence in my body. So I was very, very numb, and I felt so lonely. I feel because I didn't really allow myself to feel, that I started using foods, and basically I would go on these like binge eating journeys where I completely I ate away my feelings, because that was the one thing that was forbidden for me, was to overeat. So I would be like, oh my God, like I was just like you say, I was very lost in this wheel of not knowing myself and not allowing myself to feel. And in this moment of aloneness and not allowing myself to feel, and punishing my body, and kind of wearing this mask to the outside world, I just knew that there was something else inside of me, that I didn't come to this earth to be some sort of puppet that is, being pushed around, and here a bit of makeup and all, like that doesn't look good. And you see people behind the camera, like whispering about maybe, there's not something not right with you. And, I just knew that there was something more. And also that there is something more than just purely going and studying something and then living a life conform to the norm. I wanted to break patterns. I think that is really what it was. I really wanted to break family patterns. I wanted to break social patterns, and I arrived at a very low point. My insecurity back then, of like body insecurity, because I was constantly comparing myself to other women, um, led me to kind of, not go to castings anymore. I was really drawing myself back. And in this whole game of searching for purpose, I also was not really able to keep any relationship or love relationship alive, because I was very, very confused. So I actually ended up, after a breakup in New York City, finding myself kind of, nothing was making sense. So it was really this kind of low point of transformation that I always call, like, I feel that often we have to hit this, where everything kind of is taken away from us, that we really start making this change. And I feel that in that moment of having lost my relationship, having kind of lost my career because of insecurity, and having lost all belief in myself, that I really jumped into new waters. And what that looked like for me was that I finally allowed myself to get out of this rat race, thinking of, I already need to know something, I already need to do something, I need to prove myself, and just allowing myself the gift of time, and the gift of, okay, I'm gonna take a period of my life now, whether it is a year or 2 years. And I was very lucky back then that I was financially able to do that. But I'm going to give myself a time that I just shut off all of the noise and I start listening. And I started studying Kundalini yoga. I did a teacher training for a year in New York City, because it was like that was my first spiritual practice after having studied nutrition, and after having actually studied psychology, because I didn't mention that, but I was doing that next to my modeling career. But after trying to go down that linear way, that was my first approach to actually understanding how to bridge body, mind, and soul. And I really dove deeply in. I would like go every morning at 4 a.m. We would do this morning sadhana in community, which is like a 2-hour meditation before sunrises, to then, go deeply into practices and to meditations and into feeling. I feel like that was my first jump into, hang on a second, all of these years of numbing and confusion and trying to be something, and like, let me just see what is inside this little Miriam. Like, what is she not allowing herself to feel, and why is there such a disconnection to who I am? What is my joy in life? What is it that brings me joy doing? And I feel there was a lot of tears in the beginning. There was a lot of actually crying and letting out emotions that I have held suppressed for many years. And then there was slowly a rekindling with myself, a re-meeting with the core of who I am. And from that re-meeting, things started happening. And I think that's what I would call guidance that we all have in our life when we start listening, that one little step leads to another. And there's that certain sense of trusting that I just go with what is bringing me the most joy and what is somehow given to me from life. So after that Kundalini yoga teacher training, all of a sudden, I actually started realizing how much joy it would bring me to share my path with others, to share also my pain with others, but also to share my gift with others, to be holding presence and and also holding my gift of, I do love being in front of people. So that again, when we talk about that, how one step leads to another, how actually also my modeling career then was the step that led me into being able to present something of meaning to myself to others, because that basically taught me how to be in front of an audience, how to be in front of a camera, that now I use that in my now present life. So basically I started realizing how much I love to be in front of an audience talking about something that is meaningful for me, and how all of this pain that I felt in my teens and through my early 20s in my modeling career, how that pain of disconnection and not loving myself could now be of use to somebody else. I feel that then this story of Kundalini yoga, and I was still in this game of like, am I now a Kundalini yoga teacher? Like, who am I? Like, I would never stop asking the question of, but who am I really? Like, what is it that is at the core? Like, and I kind of followed that. And then I got invited to do a residency in Tulum after teaching at Burning Man, this big festival in Nevada City. So basically, I did a beautiful Kundalini class at this festival, Burning Man. And then from there, I was invited to go to Tulum. And I was like, you know what? Like, what do I have to lose? Like, why don't I go for a month? And I do this residency in this beautiful hotel, and I see what comes from there. And then, what came from there is actually that I fell in love with a man that is partially in Tulum, and I somehow found love through following my guidance. And then following my guidance, I was working with more and more people, and I started realizing that that is what I want to do in my life. I want to help people transitioning, and I want to help people transform, and I want to help people find themselves, and I want to really empower people to see who they are at the core, like really that sense of like giving people the security to be themselves. And then basically, you know how it is. I think my own journey led me to acquire more and more tools. Kundalini yoga led me to discovering breath work and different styles of breath work, and using transformational breath that comes from really holotropic breathing. That is a method that Stanislav Graf, a famous psychotherapist, invented. And I could kind of streamline together my education in psychology with really these alternative healing methods. And then from breath work, I met tea and Zen as a tool. And I started realizing how deeply I love to be in ritual and how deeply I love to be in nature. That was really the gift that tea gave me, how much I was longing to commune with nature. And then from tea, I discovered dance as one of my really healing methods, 5 rhythm dance. So you could see that my own journey led me to acquire more and more tools. And now I kind of use all of these different tools that have helped me, and I bring them to people, or especially to women, to explore themselves. And when we talk about the feminine, first of all, I want to make a distinction between really that feminine doesn't mean that it's gender related. A man can also explore his feminine. What I mean by that is that it is the side in ourselves that is not logical. So it's not that, okay, you acquire knowledge and A plus B plus C, is maybe D. And it's more the side in ourselves that we learn to listen to our intuition, that we allow ourselves to be creative, that we allow ourselves to receive love and give love, and that we kind of open our bodies up to feeling. And I feel that is so important for men and for women. I don't really want to make that gender division. But what I realized in my work, and why I do work a lot with women now, is that a lot of us women have held suppressed so much our feminine nature, our nurturing nature, our joy, our movement in life. I feel that we try to kind of fit into the norm so much in almost wanting to become a man. So it's like, okay, like, I can do it just as well as a man, and we really can. But it's like, how about changing the language and actually seeing how are we different than a man? Like, what are our qualities that set us aside, and can I bring them into the workspace? Can I bring my way of nurturing and wanting to collaborate, and this kind of energy of tenderness and softness and vulnerability into the workspace, rather than to suppress it? And I feel that's why I really work with women, to embody who they are rather than to suppress who they are, and put so much pressure onto to themselves, so that they get completely swept off their feet and often feel completely estranged from their feminine roots. And that tingles out also into relationships, that when we estrange ourselves so much from our feminine, most often our relationships are very much suffering, because we give the gift of the feminine to our relations also. So yeah.
If you enjoy Going Conscious, please subscribe for a new episode every Wednesday. If you think your friends and networks would benefit from listening, please share this podcast of fulfillment and freedom with them. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review. It's great to read what you think, and your support makes a big difference. Together, let's grow our courage and tools to transform and live the lives we really want to. As well as creating Going Conscious, I work as a transformation coach and conscious brand consultant. I'm on a mission to help holistically maximize conscious entrepreneurs to drive positive changes for themselves, others, and the planet. I can help you to transition and level up personally, and I can help your brand grow and make a bigger impact. To connect with me and find out more about how we can work together, find me on Instagram @NikkiTrott or on my website, nikkitrott.com. Please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. And let's talk about your path of growth and development. So how do you help women now to connect more with themselves and their feminine?
First of all, I feel that what I really do is to create a platform or an environment that women can really help themselves. So I feel there is that. It's very important to know that in the end, we we always help ourselves. We just have to have people around us that inspire us and give us the ground and give us the tools that then we can help ourselves. And when you start having somebody around that gives you the confidence to listen to yourself and to reconnect to that little whisper that you hold inside of your heart, you start reinventing yourself. In my experience, what really, 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 really changes people and what really changes your inner landscape is your own personal practice that you have in your daily life. It's how you wake up and how you start your day, or how are your little rituals during the day that you are like, hey, hang on, am I still listening to myself? I think the most important thing in life that is that we learn to have our own self-sustained practice of listening.
I love how you talk about listening there, and also about the power that everyone has within them. And as you know, this is such an important part of coaching, and something that I love about coaching my clients, that it's really helping people to understand the wisdoms that they have within and the power they have within that they can connect with, and they don't need to take it from someone else. It's just the container and the tools and the strategies and the inspiration and the connection that you get from others that help you to develop that for yourself. And really that focus on sustaining a ritual long past the experiences that they've shared with you at the retreat, for example, sounds like a really important way to make it deeply affecting work. And I'm wondering, going back a bit, there's something I really wanted to ask you when you talked about how you were really in your low place and then you realized you needed to start listening to yourself. How did you realize that? Because I think is one of the biggest shifts we can make in our lives when we stop taking everything from the external and we start to really understand how to connect internally, and how to connect with ourselves, with our guidance, with our intuition. How did you make that shift?
I feel when we talk about a low point, that it is of the point in somebody's life, or in that case in my life, that there is just no other options. So in that moment, it's like I just bow to grace, because I don't know anymore myself. I feel like that's that humbleness that comes of like, you know what, like I tried so much. Let me pray for help right now. And I think this pray for help, or this bowing to your knees and just being like, you know what, please guide me right now, is that first step to listening and to change. Because for me, it was so clear that I needed to start connecting to my body, because I tried I tried so much to use my mind, like I said, I went into studying psychology, and then I went into, like, that's my background, being very rational, being brought up very rational. And I realized that there was just not that bridge to my body. I had no connection to my gut feeling. And I had no connection to that listening. And a friend of mine brought me to my first Kundalini yoga session. And there I was like, wow, hang on. What about if I can actually bridge my mind and my body, and they can start having a conversation, and I can start feeling without being ashamed of feeling. So I think suffering is such a great catalyst for change. I think that's one of the most powerful catalysts of change. So for everybody out there that is listening, might be suffering, or that is feeling completely overwhelmed, that is such a threshold, that is such a potent spark to really go deep and really change your life. Yeah.
And what was the hardest part for you then on that path of connecting more with yourself?
The hardest part of connecting more to myself was really allowance of time, because like I said, I was so caught in the rat race, and that belief that I needed to be something, and hopefully I needed to be something as soon as possible, that it was very difficult to accept that I needed to just let go and relax and not be anything or something for a moment, and just just listen. So for me to let go of that expectation of myself that, in that moment, my parents need to be proud of myself because I am, this successful businesswoman or this world renowned model that is changing the world, these big expectations that I had of myself, and to just be like, for now I'm just exploring myself, and I can say that to people. But now I'm taking this time of exploring myself and not feeling bad about that. I think that was very difficult for me. And I just remember actually going back home to my parents one day, and we had this conversation, and I started crying, and I cried very little, especially when I was younger, and especially in front of my parents. That was that, trying to mask and hold things together and being disconnected. But it was like one of the first times that I really cried in front of them. And I was just like, I just want you guys to be proud of me. It was that little child that just wanted their parents to be proud of them, and just wanted to be acknowledged, and just wanted to be admired, probably also. So I think now, looking back, also my parents, I feel that is one of the things that they're most proud of in me, that, I am somebody that I walk a completely different path than anybody else. And I have that courage to address fear, and I have the courage to break patterns. And I think that is something so valid now on this earth, that there's many people walking now that are willing to envision a new earth.
So you mentioned success. What does success mean to you now? And how has that changed since back in the old days of modeling?
It is not as much related anymore to money. I think that was really how I used to think about success, is how much money you make. It's for me really how much impact I can have on positive change on this planet.
Beautiful. That resonates with me so much. I completely agree. My whole understanding of success has changed so much. It used to be all about power and money, and now it's completely moved into fulfillment and freedom. And like you say, being completely aligned with your own purpose, listening, learning, and when you can positively impact the lives of others, I don't think there's anything more fulfilling.
I feel that for me, my real mission in this life is to empower others to shine their greatest light, and to somehow create a community where we can all be in our uniqueness. I think that is really what it is. That's really what I'm striving for, to make people see their own uniqueness.
I love what you said about empowering others to shine their greatest light. It resonates with me in my work too. It's just such a beautiful way of saying it.
And if we combine each other's powers, we can really create something very much bigger than ourselves. And I feel that this is now happening.
There's one more thing I want to ask. We've talked about lifestyle separately in our own conversations, and living connected with nature, creating conscious community. And I'm wondering, what role does nature have for you in all of this, in this journey of connecting with yourself and your purpose and helping other people to shine their greatest light?
For me, nature is probably the most healing tool that I know to lower that stressed nervous system, and to get perspective on what is really important in life. Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Having also moved from being in the city and thinking I would never not live in a city, having been in London and New York and Berlin, and but now spending much more time in nature and then coming back, I know exactly what you mean. I feel like being in nature, I'm so much more open, and in a sense of just energetically, I can kind of feel much more connected. And then when I come back to a big city, when I'm still in that very open, connected state, it's a complete overwhelm of all of the impressions. But the impressions are so much often related to capitalism and to advertising and sales and pressure and stress. And then you quickly close up again because you can't take those all in. Don't get me wrong, I love being in the city for a time. It's super inspiring, connecting with art and theater and most importantly, seeing best friends and family and just having beautiful times together. There's so much to enjoy, amazing vegan food, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like such a quality of kind of openness and connection. And I wonder whether it also therefore takes me away from myself as well a bit.
Yes, I completely agree. And I feel that in times right now that we are in of, being faced with COVID and a pandemic, like I actually realized I lived the whole quarantine outside a city, and I lived the whole quarantine actually in Mexico inside of a biosphere. And now being back in the city, I realized how much, like you said, the importance of media, how difficult it is for people to keep perspective, because if you're bombarded every day with bad news, and I always like to say, like, I was thinking a lot about this concept of, what really sells, what can people really sell is only an exception of a norm. It's not interesting to hear, oh yeah, this went well again. And, we wake up and we go to bed, and most of the COVID cases probably are going, are not cases that people are dying. What really sells is all of the scary news. So I see it now being in a city, like everyone has one scary story to tell, and that's the story that they're telling. And then every night in the news, there's like, more bad news, and people are starting to live in fear. I even, it really has effects on me now. I start contracting and living from a contracted, fear-based way of thinking. So I feel that especially right now, it is so important to regain perspective, to see where we're laying our focus on, and to get out of the machinery of media, of news every single night, and seeing what is true for yourself. I think that is often lost also in the city, is because we are so surrounded by opinions, and that often what is lost is what is really true for myself. And that's why it is so important to get out and go to nature. And I really want to emphasize that it's not like, we just avoid life and we go out meditating with the trees. And what I really believe is that when you do that, when you go and when you, for example, live in nature, and when you do your personal growth work, that is really some sort of activism for me, because only if we come back to our own clarity and our own center can we make decisions that are based on our truth and come from clarity. And I think that is so needed right now in our world.
Yeah, absolutely. I quit the news 3 or 4 years ago now, and I think 4 years ago it must be, and it completely lightened my life. I get my information from slow media, so I listen to podcasts and I read books and listen to audiobooks. And then, of course, when something happens, you can't miss it. You're part of community. I know about Corona, I know about Black Lives Matter. These things were available to me perhaps one day later, which just doesn't matter. And then with those kinds of topics, well, especially something like Black Lives Matter, then I could make my own decision about how I wanted to engage with learning, but focusing on reading, on listening to, seminars online and reading people's stories, but not just the news, which, like you say, it's just about selling fear. And I felt a bit nervous about making that transition, because I thought maybe I'm not going to really know what's going on. Maybe in social or work situations, I might be really missing some information I should really have. Maybe I'll be out of touch. But no, you absolutely know the important things. Of course, you hear about the election. You can read specific articles that you choose to read. But yeah, I really like to prioritize podcasts and books and just not be part of that machine anymore. There's no gap. I'm not missing anything.
Yeah, I'm with you completely. I also quit the news. My parents always laugh about me, and kind of. But I completely agree with you. I'm not missing anything, and I can rather educate myself in what I can do to change things than to numb myself with the depressive news where I feel completely helpless.
Absolutely. It's very empowering. It's really an invitation to use your own skills, gifts, and powers towards something you want to change rather than just submerging and losing yourself in this constant dialogue. So, as we come to the end of our conversation today, is there a key takeaway or message that you'd like to share?
I think for me, a key message that always comes is not to lose faith and to trust. So, whatever is going to actually move now in this world of uncertainty is that there is always the gift to come back to your center. And I feel that when we come back to our centers, like I said, through different tools and through different practices, that we have, that there is no fear, that there is only safety, because it's almost a sensation of coming home.
Miriam, is there a book you've read recently and loved that you'd like to share with us?
The Womb Awakening, Initiatory Wisdom from the Creatics of All Life. And I love this book so much because we've been touching a little bit upon the feminine and the wisdom that the feminine hold, and also the incredible magic that we hold as women.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. And lastly, Miriam, where can our listeners find you online?
Online. In the World Wide Web. You can find me on my website, that is www.miriamadler.life. And right now I'm in the process actually of creating our beautiful La Luna portal, sacred portal to awaken the feminine heart. And that is going to be launching in the month of December, just for the winter solstice. So but you will find me, you can get information first of all on my website, and also on my Instagram, that is at Miriam Adler, where I announce all of the new happenings.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Miriam as much as I did. Miriam described how each step on her journey took her towards her mission, even when it wasn't clear how it might all come together. I love hearing about this because it shows me that we really do need to surrender to our journey. I've had the same experience in my journey, from fashion brand consultant to conscious transformation work for people and their brands. I didn't see how it would all come together along the way, but I trusted my intuition. In episode 8, Marion talks about a similar learning as well, so take a listen to that one if you haven't. Miriam and I talk about how we both quit compulsive news consumption. I've been surprised by how many people I've come across recently who have also made the same change in recent years. For me, at least, this didn't mean never reading a news article. It means not being sucked in or addicted to the constant fear cycle of daily news reading. I used to find myself going to news sites multiple times a day without even thinking about it, and being drawn into reading the same regurgitated stories which drained my energy, focus, and presence. When we are much more intentional about how we receive information and the topics we want to go deeper on, we can focus on what we want to learn and put our energy to productive use. Being connected to our friends and communities, using some curated social media, and listening to podcasts, there's no risk of missing the important things that are happening in the world. I also find it interesting how when Miriam was at her lowest point, the first step on her own path to transformation was to connect with her body. She discovered Kundalini yoga. She took herself out of her mind and grounded herself back into her body. I had the same experience. When I left London and my fashion advertising job, a crucial process in unraveling my true purpose was reconnecting with my body. Up until that point, I had seen my body more as a container, a shell that I was moving around in, pushing, dressing, a shell that was there to be used. Rather like how in our society we have seen the earth as a resource that's just there to be used up. I think that when we're caught on the hamster wheel, we also forget our connection with our bodies. We see our bodies as a resource to be used up. So when I started training in Pilates soon after I'd made lots of big changes in my life, and even actually I took a teacher training course as well to go deeper into the practice, I was amazed by how much I was affected spiritually and mentally as well as physically. I came back to my center, opened my energy, and started listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe now. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating and short review. If you think people you know might benefit from listening to Going Conscious, please share it with them. I know I get much of my inspiration from podcasts which are shared with me. For all episodes, our library, and more, visit goingconscious.com. Your support to spread this positive message of fulfillment and freedom means so much. As well as hosting Going Conscious, I help conscious entrepreneurs to transition and unleash their power and purpose with my transformation coaching and conscious brand consulting work. Discover more on Instagram at Nikki Trott or on my website, nikkitrott.com. I'd love to hear from you and to talk about your goals, questions, or how we can work together. And if I don't hear from you before then, see you next Wednesday on the next episode of Going Conscious. As always, live your freedom.